Welcome to the Economic Fallout, where we break down the biggest financial crises shaping our world. Today, we're diving into a brewing storm that could shake the foundations of the global economy, the Global Trade War 2.0. With the US imposing sweeping tariffs on China, Mexico, Canada, and the EU, retaliatory trade restrictions are escalating tensions. But history tells us, trade wars are never just about economics, they're about power. Is this just another political maneuver, or are we on the verge of a worldwide economic collapse? Let's find out. It all started with the US government slapping a 25% tariff on imports from Mexico and Canada, alongside a 10% tariff on Chinese goods. Officials claim these moves are meant to protect American jobs and reduce trade deficits. But history tells us, trade wars are rarely won. So, what's happening around the world? China has retaliated with higher tariffs on US tech and agricultural products. Canada and Mexico are hitting back with steep duties on American auto parts, steel, and dairy. The EU is threatening additional tariffs on US goods like bourbon, motorcycles, and even tech components. All of this means higher costs for businesses and consumers worldwide. But how bad can it get? Let's take a look at the economic fallout. Tariffs may sound like a political tool, but they hit real people. Here's how different economies are suffering. In the US, prices for everyday goods, electronics, cars, even groceries, are rising due to increased import costs. American farmers are losing billions as China cuts soybean and wheat imports. US manufacturers are warning of layoffs due to higher raw material costs. In China, factory activity slowed to a 3-month low as global demand for Chinese goods declines. The Chinese government is injecting billions into the economy to cushion the blow. Supply chain disruptions are forcing China to seek new trading partners. In Europe, Germany's auto industry is reeling as US tariffs hit major car manufacturers. The European Union is now considering its own trade pacts to bypass US influence. France and the UK are seeing higher food and energy prices. But what about the financial markets? Are they reflecting the growing fears? Investors are nervous, and the stock market tells the story. The Dow Jones dropped over 700 points last week amid growing trade fears. The Nasdaq fell 7%, with major tech stocks taking a hit. Gold prices surged, a classic safe haven move in uncertain times. Bitcoin crashed 20% due to global uncertainties. Expert predictions. Some analysts warn that continued trade tensions could wipe out trillions in global market value. Others believe that central banks may step in with interest rate cuts or quantitative easing to stabilize economies. The question is, are we already too deep into this trade war to turn back? So what's the real risk? Could this trade war trigger a full-blown recession? Trade wars don't just disrupt industries, they can crash entire economies. Here's why. Manufacturing slowdowns in China, the EU, and the US could cut global GDP growth by up to 1.5%. Inflation is rising as tariffs drive up costs, meaning your paycheck buys less. The bond yield curve, a key recession indicator, is flashing warning signs. Global economic experts weigh in. JP Morgan predicts that continued trade tensions could cost the global economy $1 trillion in lost growth over the next 5 years. IMF warns that emerging markets could suffer the most, with slower trade leading to capital outflows. The World Bank sees a risk of stagflation if high prices and slow growth persist. What's next? Will world leaders pull back, or will we see further economic escalation? So, is this the beginning of a global economic collapse? It depends on what happens next. Possible solutions, negotiations. If leaders step back and negotiate, a trade war can be avoided. Diversification of trade partners. Countries may bypass US trade policies and seek new markets. Central banks' role. The Fed and global banks may cut interest rates to stabilize economies. What should you do? Investors should diversify their portfolios to protect against volatility. Consumers should prepare for higher prices on imported goods. Businesses need contingency plans to handle supply chain disruptions. What do you think? Are we headed for another great recession, or will governments find a way out? If you found this video insightful, please like, share and subscribe, hit the bell and comment. Protect your wealth, protect your family. Stay prepared. This is Paul for the Economic Fallout.